Priest for Life. Welcome to our program. And we have a problem here in the United States. You know what that is? So many couples are trying to have children and they're unable to conceive and they want to adopt. And guess what? Because of abortion, we don't have enough babies to adopt. And then they feel like, well, how is that process? And what do we have to do? And then we have on the other side, the woman who is pregnant and says, I can't be a mom. And then she's afraid of adoption. So what we're going to do today, we're going to delve into this topic. And I think you're going to feel a lot more comfortable about adoption when you hear my next guest, Brad Imler, who is the president of the Christian Adoption Alliance. Welcome to the program, Brad.
Hey, Janet, thank you for having me. It is an honor to be here with you.
Great to have you. Well, as you know, we and you have been working to save babies from abortion. So many of these mothers, when they get into a pregnancy help center, they don't want to parent, they don't have the baby, and, they're trying to persuade them not to abort, but they're afraid of adoption. Why do you think that is, that they're afraid of adoption?
God created mothers to bond with their children. And so there is a fear that if I continue this pregnancy, I will bond with the baby. And there's no way that I would be able to choose another family to raise it versus myself.
Right. Yeah. I have to, that's part of it. And then I saw another thing I saw in a survey one time where they said, well, what if the baby, when they were grown up as adults, come back and look for me and start questioning me, like, why did you give me up? Why did you place me for adoption? Do you think that's a factor too? They're afraid of that?
There's a whole variety of factors. Yes, that's one of them. Expecting parents have, when they're considering adoption, a number of different fears that might interfere with making that decision. Fear that I'll regret the decision, fear that my child will hate me or come back and find me and want to know why did they give me away, when that's not what birth mothers do. When they choose adoption, they are giving to the baby. Not the gift is to the baby, not of the baby.
Right. And of course, you and your wife have a personal experience with this, right? Because you're now married 34 years, but you yourself went down the road of adoption. Why don't you just tell us your own personal story a little bit?
Well, I've got two sides to my personal story. I'm adopted myself, but in the journey of growing our family through the ministry of adoption, I was blessed to be engaged in the pro-life community. I knew how things were supposed to work, and I was also post-abortive. And I was partnering with a ministry called Rama International. They had invited me to come in and do a training for men who were post-abortive, helping pregnancy centers know how to talk to men who were post-abortive. And I was doing a seminar in Jacksonville, Florida, and there was about 100 centers out in the audience. I shared an aspect of my testimony, which included the infertility of my wife and I. And immediately, one of the pregnancy center directors felt God prick her and say, "You're going to help this family get a baby." The rest of the conference, she's wrestling with God, going, how am I going to do that? I'm not an adoption agency. It's not ethical for me to match birth moms and clients. 2 weeks later, a friend of hers called and said, "Hey, Dottie, it's Tracy. My daughter Ryan's pregnant. She doesn't want to come in and be a client. She just wants to know if you know a Christian couple outside of Florida looking to adopt." And that's how we got connected with our first child. So many different God stories connected to adoption, but that's how we got connected with our first.
Right. And I have a story like that too, because one time I was with Father Pavone in Arizona, and he was preaching at all the masses, and I had a little table at the back of, outside the church on the plaza, and a couple came up to me after one of the masses and said, "Janet, we need you to help us." I said, "Really? What can I do?" And they said, "Well, our daughter became pregnant. It was, a date rape at college. She's having the baby, but we want to place the baby for adoption. And we don't know anybody." And I went, "Oh." And they thought, because I work in the pro-life movement, you must know somebody. Well, I did. I knew an attorney, John Jakubczyk, in a pro-life attorney, and I connected them. And and John knew of a couple in San Francisco, a beautiful couple, like you said, Catholic, Christian, and they had been trying for a number of years to adopt. And it's like the baby fell in their laps, and then John took care of the whole thing. And here, like what I thought was going to be a dilemma for me, like I have to help find a family for this baby. It's not as hard as you think. There's plenty of people out there. You just have to say it, like, oh, someone wants to place a baby for adoption. So now tell us a little bit more, though, about your Christian adoption agency, because what are the criteria? Like if someone's watching right now and they know someone who's pregnant and she's on the fence and say, well, maybe I would consider adoption and give my baby, make a plan, an adoption plan. What's so great about the Christian Alliance Adoption Agency? Like, tell us a little bit more.
Well, sure. Janet, first off, we are not an adoption agency. What we do is we're a nonprofit. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. And we vet agencies that deliver adoption from a biblical and Christian perspective. The word Christian on a website doesn't mean what it used to. And so we have and are still looking to vet adoption agencies all across the country, identifying the ones that will honor God's design, placing children only in Christian families that are committed to raising that child in a Christian home.
Right. That's beautiful. So, and when you say Christian, it could be Catholic or a Christian denomination, doesn't matter.
Sure.
It's just believing in the Bible and Jesus and that, and a man and a woman, a mom and a dad, right? I mean, that's another criteria, isn't it?
A biological man and a biological woman, yes.
I know. Isn't that crazy, Brad? We have to say that now. We have to add that.
Say that. It is crazy. Yeah, but when
we have to add that caveat. Yeah.
When we were working on our, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just saying, one time I was over in Rome and with one of the cardinals, and he said, yes, marriage is between one man and one woman. Nowadays, he'd have to add that word biological into that spiel. It's sad, but true. So you help vet the different agencies out there. So then that could be Catholic Charities could be listed with you too, as long as they agree to those things we just said. Correct?
Sure, by all means. And Father Pavone helped us craft our statements of belief so that we aligned with both Catholic and Protestant denominations, while excluding those that would, for example, deny the deity of Christ. And so it is Christian, those who recognize the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, and are believers.
So let's just go back for a minute to you and your wife, because you are the perfect example. You had fertility issues, weren't able to have a child, so you adopted two, not one, but two children. And they're adults, I would guess, by now, aren't they?
My son is 25 and my daughter's turning 24. And so they're 15 months apart.
Because people always have this question. I'm sure you could give the experience. When does those children find out that they're adopted? How does that work? What was your experience with all that?
So I was adopted myself many years ago when the practice was delivering adoption from a closed perspective. Adoptive families didn't know who the birth families were. And my mom was outside the box. She told me that I was adopted from the earliest of days, even before I knew what it meant. So much so I was on the playground with some friends. I was probably 8, 9, maybe 10 years old. And there was a hospital right there. And one of my friends says, I was born in that hospital. And they looked at me and said, Brad, where were you born? And I said, well, I wasn't born. I was adopted. And I got laughter. No, I didn't get laughter from them. I got puzzled looks. But I went to my mom, who was always supportive, and talked about how God chose me for the family. With my kids, both of my kids have open adoptions. We know the birth families. We interact with them. We have conversations with them. We visit with them. My kids have been on vacation with them, which is more open than most open adoptions. But the majority of adoptions, and really, when I say a majority, it's according to the National Council for Adoption, it's over 80% of adoptions are open in some form or fashion. And every bit of evidence shows that's the healthiest for all three members of that triad.
Right. Well, and my cousin had one child, but then could not get pregnant again, so she adopted, and she had a great relationship with the birth mother during the pregnancy. And in fact, the birth mother wanted her to come to the delivery room when she went into labor, to be there, you know? And she lived in New York, and the birth mom was in Pennsylvania. I remember my cousin telling me, the baby's coming, the baby's coming. And they went, they went to Pennsylvania, her and her husband, and she was right there in the delivery room. Of course, because of the law, she didn't take the baby for several more days. There's a waiting period and all that. But she said, oh my goodness, like this birth mother allowed me to be there, and even let me hold, like she held the baby, but I held the baby, she said, and it was amazing. His name is Alex, and the kid is the smartest little whip today. And she said, look, you take that baby. You're his mama now. I can't have any more kids. I have too many already. I'm just, I just can't deal with it. I just want him to have a full life with you and your husband and your son. So, and he's now a teenager, and he knows he's adopted, and the whole family. I mean, he's like my cousins who are the grandparents. They don't make any distinction between his brother, older brother, who was the birth child, and him. Like it's the same thing. You're in the family, and we all feel that way. So, I think people should dispel those fears of, are the children accepted by everybody? Yeah, we love them. It's like amazing, So, and for your children, then they found out, like you told them when they were what, like around 8, 9, 10, or?
Oh, no, from the beginning. They've always known from the earliest of days. And we would even visit with both of my kids' birth mothers and my son's birth father when they were less than a year old, 2 years old, 3 years old. It's been an ongoing relationship. We adopted a family, not a baby.
Yeah. Well, and you know what it is? I think, Brad, that's very individual, case by case. But with open adoption what I'm finding more and more is people like it because they have the background of the parents and the child they're adopting, and the adoptive parents have the background of the couple that they're placing their child with. And so I think this open adoption thing seems to be working quite well, don't you say?
It is. It's working very well. Again, every bit of evidence shows that the healthiest thing is for an open adoption for all three members of the triad. Adoptive families enter into adoption with a fear. Most of them wonder, what is it going to be like if we have an open adoption? Is she going to interfere, or is she going to regret this, want to take the baby back? And that's not the case. When a birth mother chooses adoption and chooses the family that she gives to her baby, she just wants to know she made a good choice. And so she loves to interact and see dad holding, the baby on his chest. See mom, doing giggles and tickles and having fun and knowing that she made a good decision. She just wants to be a part, knowing that her decision was good.
All right. And so now the goal here right now is for other adoption agencies, including Catholic Charities, to be in touch with you. Is that correct? So that they're listed with you, and then you can basically help them get babies because of could you explain that part so everyone listening understands?
Sure. So we let pregnancy centers know where are the safe places for them to make referrals, knowing that if a birth mother chooses adoption and they refer her to one of our vetted agencies, that child is going to land in a Christian family. And that could be any denomination, that can be Catholic, that can be Lutheran, that can be Baptist. And so connecting pregnancy centers to vetted agencies is our mission. And so what we're looking for is the Catholic Charities that align with that. Actually, we're looking for any and all agencies that don't just identify themselves as Christians, but go beyond that with the commitment that children will only be placed with Christian families.
Right. That's beautiful. Remind us one more time the website for more information.
ChristianAdoptions.org.
Perfect. Well, Brad, this was a great conversation, and you're a great, what should I say, representative for adoption, having to been adopted and, and now adopted yourself. That's the great way for people who live the experience and can then promote it. So all the best, and I hope we continue to spread adoption here in our country. So thank you for joining me today.
Janet, thank you for having us and being engaged in adoption. One of the blessings is being able to hear people's divine appointments and their God stories and how God used adoption for them. And so
Right.
It is a blessing. And so thank you for having me.
Okay, God bless. Well, brothers and sisters, I hope you learned a lot about adoption right now. And again, keep an open mind, keep an open heart, and spread the word that there's so many babies waiting to find their forever family. And maybe God's calling on you to step forward and be that forever family. This is Janet Marana, Executive Director of Priests for Life. Thank you for joining us today. God bless.